people store. So we have got huge opportunities after picking from the previous presenters. I've got huge experience from Zimbabwe. Malawi to develop the Spa brand. So currently in Malawi, we have got 7 Spa stores with a huge opportunity for growth, especially on the fresh produce. So in brief, we are running 21 retail stores. These 21 retail stores are running in the big cities of Blantyre, Lilongwe, Muzuzu, and Zomba. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gabriel Rugalema. I'm the Regional Director for Eastern and Southern Africa of the World Vegetable Center. The World Vegetable Center's regional office is based in Arusha, and we are involved in 4 main areas. The first one is to collect, classify, and conserve germplasm, that is planting materials of seeds and non-seed materials that we keep in our gene bank and distribute across the world. But we also collect from throughout the world. And of course, the replicated in the global gene bank in Svalbard in Norway. So that's our number one. We are the biggest vegetable gene bank in the region, Africa south of the Sahara. Number 2 is we are involved in breeding and the release of new varieties. If you ate any tomato today, it came from our center. If you ate any leafy vegetable, amaranth or anything, it came from our center. So we work very closely with the Tanzania Agriculture Research Institute in the developing of seeds and the releasing of new varieties. We also do capacity building, training of farmers and scientists and students, as well as in the development of agribusinesses, particularly in the horticulture sector. So I'm really very happy to join you this morning because it all starts with good seed. I mean, you can talk about logistics, you can talk about selling on the market, you can talk about anything, but without a good seed, which is me, you won't get anywhere. So I'm really expecting a very wonderful discussion this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my member of the panel, for the introduction. So as you can see, we have quite a diverse team here, but all feeding into our discussion on trade and investment. So we have experience from Congo, from Comoro, from Malawi, Zimbabwe, and Southern Africa, but also from an international research organization, so we have a lot of international experience. Now, starting with trade, we all know that farmers' participation in the market is very important. And there's quite a lot of literature showing a close link between market participation and poverty reduction. But also at national level, we have evidence where there's a close link between participation in trade and economic growth. So trade can be really an engine for economic growth and transformation. We have experience, for example, in Southeast Asia, where at some time the economy was very much driven by export-led growth. And in our upcoming 5-year development plan, one of the focus areas is enhancing Tanzania's competitiveness, but also promoting export-led growth. Africa, over years, has increasingly participated in trade. However, Africa in recent years has lost its market share in some of the global markets. And we have quite sufficient evidence on that. For example, currently, Africa has become the largest importer of food commodities in the world, spending about $35 billion to $52 billion a year in importing various food commodities. Here in Tanzania, we spend around $650 million also importing food commodities. And most of these, we have edible oil, we have wheat, we have sugar, we have also poultry, meat, milk and dairy products, but also horticultural commodities, fruits and vegetables. In the morning we heard a lot about South African apples in Tanzania's market. That's an example that despite the fact we export, but we import significantly into our economy. And the trend, according to the current statistics, imports for Africa is likely to increase to over $100 billion a year in the near future. And by importing commodities which could be produced domestically, it means we are exporting our jobs. And we understand the problem of unemployment, especially here in Africa, youth unemployment. Most of our population are youth and have difficulties in finding employment. And agriculture could have been the right sector to provide employment for them. So by continuing to import, we're exporting these jobs. Today's discussion will look at how can we increase our participation in trade. How can we make our countries competitive? My first question will go to Mr. Kangulu, who has been very much working particularly on finance. But before I get into that specific question, I would like also to touch a little bit on investment, because the two elements of trade and investment are very much closely linked. Africa in recent years also has experienced an increase in foreign direct investment, in addition to own domestic investment through public investment. Starting with the public investment, we do have the Maputo as well as Malabo Declaration, which is encouraging governments in Africa to allocate at least 10% of their budgets to the agricultural sector. We understand very few countries have reached that threshold, which means agriculture is underfunded. There's underinvestment in agriculture. Also, despite increase in overall foreign direct investment, which in 2018 was around $50 billion, but this year it has decreased up to $35 billion. Partly, of course, is attributed to the outbreak of COVID-19. So that, I would say, overall, in terms of FDI, Africa and the Southern African region has doing not bad. But of course, the trend has been a little bit, I would say, interrupted by outbreak of COVID-19, and we hope we'll be able to recover immediately after. But the big challenge when it comes to FDI is I would say, disparity in investment across the sector. Agriculture is not really attracting the right share of FDI flow. For example, here in Tanzania, of all projects that have been registered by Tanzania Investment Center, only 60 to 70% of the total FDI goes to agriculture, including livestock sector. Likewise, when you look at the commercial bank lending in Tanzania, the share of agriculture is around 60%. While you have almost 65% of the population depending on agriculture as their main source of livelihood. So all these are challenges that there's really underinvestment in the agricultural sector, and then that they needed to be addressed. But we are also aware of other opportunities which exist. For example, in 2018, Africa received about $52 billion in remittance by African diaspora living overseas. This is good news, but on the other hand, also there's been a disparity across the countries. In fact, 50% of that remittance went to Nigeria alone, and very few countries in Southern Africa. A little bit of Kenya, $4 billion. For Tanzania, has been around $200 million. So how can we create an enabling environment to allow investment by African diaspora overseas. Experience in Asia shows, for example, in China in the 90s, when China was really growing at over 10%, most of the FDI that went into China came from Chinese diaspora living Southeast Asia. So this is a huge potential which has not been tapped. Now, going back to these two issues of trade and investment, there's also a close link between business environment and trade and investment. And as you could see, the ranking in Africa corresponds very well with the participation in trade and the flow of investment, which means our business environment is not yet conducive and probably much even worse in agriculture, and that's why agriculture has not been receiving its proportional share of trade and investment. Now, I would like to hear from you, your experience, for example, DRC. This is the third largest country in terms of population in Africa, with over 100 million people. But also you have vast resources, which of course show the potential that DRC in the near future could become a huge market, especially for small countries around DRC. I would like you to hear your opinion on what needs to be done in order to promote, first starting with regional trade. But also along regional trade, currently, intra-regional trade in Africa is only 10%, as compared to 60% in Asia and 40% in Europe. So we trade very little among our countries. East Africa was a little bit high, up to 18%, but we are backsliding. SADC went up to around, I think, 12 or 15%, but we have not been able to move beyond that. So starting with the DRC, what could be done to promote trade within our countries, particularly in agricultural commodities, especially food commodities, which most countries are net importers, while you have few countries which are producing surplus?
I think this kind of forum is one of the solution on what you are saying. It means for the moment we will know each other or the countries is our really capacity. For example, for DRC, you said for Africa, but for DRC, in agriculture product, we are importing like 90% of everything that we are eating, and only maybe 10 that can be produced locally. And see, a lot of this is coming from China. This is the big market that coming from China, and maybe the rice from Thailand. And of course, maybe we should thank you, COVID. Because of COVID, we noticed that we get really in big trouble when all the country was closed, and the government have created a project, a big one, for $4 billion just to inject in this market. DRC can be, I've seen the figures, for example, from Taha, exporting especially to Europe and other countries. And DRC can be a big market for Taha. As you said, we are more than 100 million people. It means 30% of SADC population. And also not only for consumption, but also as for production. As you know, we have 80 million hectare, arable hectare for agriculture. And on that, we have only 1% that is used. It means it's a big project that everyone can come and try to do business with us. We are, especially for me, according to me, we could do something with SADC countries. Like for example, there is rice coming a lot from Thailand. I think Tanzania has got a lot of rice that they can sell. The only big problem will be maybe logistics, because infrastructure is not really good. But we always try to find a way to reach the country without. This is also a challenge for us as a community, to see how we can link south to north, east to west, and this is the big problem that we are facing, like in DRC. But the market is there. People would like to get something. People are looking for something. People are looking for investors, and for the moment there is a big project over there, $4 billion that is waiting for investors.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kangulu, for your thought on this issue. You have touched about logistics and the infrastructure. And in fact, if you look at some of the literature in the 90s, have been attributing low intra-regional trade, partly due to lack of connectivity in infrastructure in the region. But in recent years, we have witnessed development of regional programs in roads and railway. And we also see from outside, for example, the China's Silk and Road Initiative, looking at Africa also as a region. But I'm not sure if we African countries, we have the same outlook of seeing the real urgency for connectivity. Earlier this week, I read in the newspaper about a minister from Angola was talking about having a railway that would connect Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. And I've been looking at the reactions in the social media and the newspaper. So, this is very, very interesting. We're still looking at ourselves as individual countries, probably more than a region. Can I have your reaction? What initiatives are going on in DRC to connect its infrastructure with neighboring countries? Is there any initiative?
I think there was an initiative with Tanzania, I think with Zimbabwe and DRC to make a road and rail, I think. But this initiative is taken by each country as just part. We would like an initiative that can be done by the group, by the association. Means if, for example, in case of SADC, we can have one vision on this that can link all the countries, and we go, for example, to China, who's really interested by Africa, and we said you can do the infrastructure not only by country, but thinking also in the future, linking the countries between themselves, and maybe to link North Africa, then South Africa, and everything. If we see the geostrategic position of DRC, it's in the middle, with a big problem of infrastructure. It means no one can go on the north without passing by DRC. As soon as we have a lot of problem of infrastructure, it's like everything will stop by there. And we really need all the countries to work together. This kind of, the SADC or other associations should be fine for this kind of project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kangulu. Now I'll turn to Honorable Abdulaziz Othman. Mheshimiwa, nitauliza hili swali langu kwa Kiswahili. Najua unaongea lugha nyingi sana, lakini swali langu kwa Kiswahili. Tunajua kwamba kisiwa cha Komoro kina historia za kiutamaduni na kiuchumi sawa na sehemu ya Tanzania, hasa visiwa vyetu vya Zanzibar. Kisiwa cha Komoro kinazalisha mazao ya kilimo ambayo yanazalishwa pia sehemu kama Zanzibar, hasa viungo. kama vile kuna viungo kama mdalasini, kuna viungo kama cloves na vingine ambavyo vinazalishwa kwenye kisiwa chako. Lakini tunaelewa pia kwamba nchi yako pia inategemea mazao mengine, hasa haya ya bustani kama mboga na matunda kutoka nchi zingine. Mwenzako ameongelea hasa tatizo la usafirishaji, na Komoro inategemea zaidi usafiri wa baharini na majini. Labda unipe uzoefu wako kwamba kwa upande huo wa usafirishaji, nini changamoto na fursa unaonaje hasa katika kuimarisha biashara kati ya Komoro na Tanzania? Ni fursa gani zipo?
Asante sana. Kwa Komoro tunaona kwamba tunazalisha kama alivyosema mzee karafu. Hiyo ni kazi kubwa ya Wakomoro wote, lakini tatizo kubwa kupata masoko. Hata leo unaweza kupata quantity kubwa ya karafu ambazo ziko kwenye store, wakati ambayo wale ambao wananunua sio wenye kuzalisha, wanakuja kununua kwa bei rahisi sana, wanauza nje kwa bei nafuu, ambao wao ndio wanapata bahati, kwa sababu kuna matatizo sana ya kusafirisha kutoka Komoro. Hasa sisi tuko kwenye katikati ya bahari, ile funguvisiwa ambayo hatuwezi kusafiri bila ndege au boti au meli au marikabu, na hizo zote safari ni nzito kusafirisha kwenda sehemu mbalimbali. Komoro kama ni Zanzibar, tukifahamiana vizuri tutaweza kupata masoko makubwa ya karafu. Bidi tuweke kamati ambayo inasaidia wale wafanyakazi ya karafu, wakati ambaye karafu inatoka Komoro kwa bei ndogo sana. Kwa hivyo hata sasa hii watu wanamezuia kuzalisha au wamezalisha lakini wameweka kwenye store, wanasubiri bei nafuu ambayo itakuja, hatujui itakuja siku gani. Kwa hivyo kwa katika Taha au sote hapa tuweke nini, tuwe pamoja, tusaidiane namna jinsi gani tupate soko ya nafuu hasa ya karafuu na mazao mengine ambazo zinatoka Komoro. Komoro sisi tunachukua mambo mengi kutoka nje, chakula kama majimbi, nyanya, vitunguu zinatoka hapa Dar es Salaam au Madagascar, zote zinafika Komoro. Lakini kwa bahari unajua inachukua muda, pengine watu wanapata hasara zaidi ya asili 150. Kwa nini? Kule baharini hawana sehemu ya kuhifadhi mizigo, hawana sehemu ya kuweka vizuri mizigo, zinafikia Komoro kwa hasara asili 150. Kwa hivyo tunashukuru serikali ya Tanzania wanatusaidia kusafirisha, lakini bado iko na matatizo ya thamani. Huwezi kusafirisha mizigo mengi kutoka Komoro au hata kutoka Tanzania kuelekea Komoro, wakati ambayo tunanunua vitu vingi kutoka hapa Tanzania. Tuko na matatizo mengine, mboga au hata matunda zinatokea vile vile hapa Tanzania. Kuna zile ambazo tunazalisha kule Komoro, lakini masoko hatuna kwa sababu ni visiwa, ni vidogo. Kuna soko moja ni Mayoti ambaye ni Komoro, lakini hiyo pia ni watu wanaona kama ni Faransa, lakini hawa wanatumia sana zile mboga na matunda ambayo tunazalisha Komoro, lakini kusafirisha vile vile ni tatizo kwa sababu ya mambo ya serikali kupata vibali ya kusafirisha, hata vibali ya kuwekeza na wao ni matatizo sana. Kwa mambo mengine tunaona kwamba Komoro tunataka tusaidie, kwa sababu rais wa kisasa Azali Asumani amefungua fursa kubwa ya kuwekeza Komoro, lakini matatizo ni kule ndani na wale ambao wanasaidia kazi, wengine hawajui kazi vizuri. kwa ajili ya kwamba anakuja mtu anataka kukusaidia, lakini ile kazi wenyewe haijui. Kwa hivyo hapa tunataka kujifunza kidogo na wenzetu, lakini pengine kama kuna uzoefu tunaweza kuwasaidia. Kama tunaona mboga zinatoka Anjwa mpaka Mayotte, lakini yule ambaye anazalisha anapata tatizo ya kujua safari itakuwa siku gani. Akienda kule anaweza kuzuia kusafirisha zile mizigo, zinaharibika, au hata yeye mwenyewe hawezi kuzitumia. Matunda Komoro zinakuja kwa muda, sio kula muda, lakini muda ambaye zinakuja nyingi sana, hata watu hawezi kuzitumia, zinaharibika kwa ajili kwamba hatuna soko ya kutumia matunda kama ni miembe au tunaita mango. Tunazalisha nyingi sana. Sasa tuko na taratibu ya kuwekeza kwenye juice, ya kutengeneza majuice, au hata kupata njia nyingine kusafirisha hizo matunda nje kabla hata kuzitumia Komoro.
Nina swali fupi tu la nyongeza kwa sababu ya muda ambao hatuna. Tunajua kwamba kisiwa cha Komoro kina msingi hasa pia wa uchumi wa bluu. Ina maana uvuvi, lakini pia na utalii. Na kwa hapa Tanzania ukitizama kwa mfano hapo nyuma yako kuna nembo ya Taha. Utaona ile A inaonyesha nini? Twiga wawili. Kwa hiyo inaonyesha pia kimkakati Taha wanatizama pia soko hili la watalii. Tanzania kawaida inapata watalii kama 2,000,000. Hawa sio watu wachache. Hili ni soko kubwa hasa kwa sababu ni soko la watu wenye vipato vya juu. Hoteli haya ya kitalii is a high end market. Sasa najua kwamba Komoro na nyie mna uchumi huu wa blue ambao unaangalia pia utalii. Sijui mna mkakati gani katika kulenga hilo soko? Umeongelea kidogo kuhusu kisiwa cha Mayotte ambacho nacho kina soko la juu. Labda utupe uzoefu mwingine kama upo.
Komoro, mambo ya utalii ni muhimu sana kwa sababu Komoro kama unavyoona iko kwenye visiwa, na sehemu ya kutembea ni nyingi sana, ni pazuri sana. Karibuni wote Komoro. Na mambo ya uvuvi, unajua kama ile visiwa popote bahari inazunguka, lakini utaalamu kubwa ya kufanya hiyo kazi bado Wafaransa ndio wanaileta. Wanakuja na kufanya hiyo kazi na kuchukua zile samaki wanaleta nje, lakini Wakomoro wenyewe bado mpaka sasa hii hajawahi kupata nafasi ya kuwekeza kwenye samaki na ile utalii. Na utalii wenyewe iko na matatizo fulani kama tulivyosema, safari ya bahari au hata ndege sio rahisi kufika Komoro. Hata ikifika Moroni na visiwa vya talii ni mbali. Kutoka Moroni usafiri paka Muheli au Anjwa, sehemu ambayo naweza kupata sehemu ya kutalii, hiyo ni balaa, ni tatizo lingine. Bidi sasa tukae pamoja, tuweke hii kikao ya ambayo tutaweza kusaidia utalii apate fursa zake, apate haki zake, kama anafanya kazi aweze kusaidiwa na serikali na hii kikao ya kazi yetu.
Asante sana mheshimiwa. Naomba nikukatishe kidogo, labda sema pointi yako ya mwisho kwa sababu muda umekuwa mfupi.
Kuokoa muda, mimi nilikuwa na point kwamba sisi sasa hii kuongea sio rahisi, na bidi pia sisi kama kuna mtu na fikra anataka kusaidia alete andiko. Kwa sisi sasa tutaweza kusaidia kupeleka andiko yetu lote kwa Taha au kwa kamati ambayo itaendelea na hizi kazi baada ya kumaliza hii forum. Na mambo mengine, nashukuru Taha kwa hii fursa kubwa ambayo nilipewa, na mara nyingine nashukuru sisi sote. Asalamu alaykum.
Asante sana mheshimiwa, na nikukumbushe tu pia kwamba hapa tunaye naibu katibu mkuu wa kilimo kutoka Zanzibar yuko hapa. Lakini pia najua kuna mikakati kemkemu pia kwa upande wa Tanzania, hasa upande wa uvuvi, ikiwemo kununua meli ambazo pia zina vipozeo. Hii inaweza kuwa ni fursa sio kwa samaki tu, lakini pia katika kusafirisha mazao haya ya mboga mboga.
Kwetu kwa safari hii sasa tuko na mwekezaji mmoja anakuja kesho, atakuja kutafuta sehemu ya kuwekeza na kutengeneza maboti ya fiber. La pia tutatembelea hapa Dar es Salaam na Zanzibar kwa sababu kule
sasa kwa Bwana Takadi, umeongelea uzoefu wako hasa wa kufanya biashara katika nchi zaidi ya moja. Sorry, let me turn back into English. So Mr. Takadi, you mentioned earlier about your experience in investing across countries in the region. And as we are discussing about investment, there's also an element of cross-border investment. This is a new trend in Africa, growing very fast. I know Tanzanians are very familiar with the regional corporations that are investing here. I can mention a few, but you know, they are very much familiar. But we do also have Tanzanian companies that also have invested across the border. I think this should be very much encouraged, especially this time, like this year when we have outbreak of COVID, as we see international investment declining. Now, I would like you to hear your experience of investing across these countries in SADC area. Where have you faced most challenges? Maybe not to specify the country, but just show the differences in policies and regulations across these countries and what it really takes to attract, cross-border investment.
Thank you so much. Out of my experience in SADC, I've realized that most of the challenges comes from the macro environment, where government policies, sometimes they don't encourage this integration. Most of the countries have worked, they are landlocked, and right now retail is quite evolving. There are so many strategies you can come up with, but with the policies among governments, we have realized that it is prohibiting the SADC countries to grow. More importantly, with this topic of horticulture, retail right now is very evolving in the sense that there is no way you can come up with a profitable store without fruit and veg. However, this has been research has proved that any store without fruit and veg is either it will survive for a short period of time. The country I'm coming from, Malawi, PTC is the largest retail chain, and they've realized this challenge of having this horticulture, and they've invested into two strong brands, which is Food Lovers and Spa. But the biggest challenge is the supply chain, which the presenters have presented. The company has actually invested in the infrastructure. I'm talking about managing the cold chain. However, the infrastructure is there, but the produce is not available. So the biggest challenge which retail chains have faced in SADC has been the consistency of supplying. One of the outlining thing is each country has got strength in different crops and fruits. But as a institution, as a region, I don't think we have been communicating, sharing ideas, collaborating. I've just heard that this country has got lots of avocados. But if you come to Malawi, the shelves are literally empty. I've heard a number of crops which are available here. What we do every week, we bring in 60 tons of fruit, but they don't come from this country. I'm actually hoping that even where we get them, they get them from here, and then we import from there. So there are a lot of advantages and synergies which we can build, and I believe there is mutual benefit because there is high demand of fruit and veg. Right now, with these constraints of supply chain, the contribution of fruit and veg has been 10% of the all turnovers of our 21 stores. Out of 10%, 80% has been on fruit, and fruit alone is a challenge to bring in.
Okay, thank you. Maybe picking up from that point, Michigan State University has done some research work in the region, and one of the key findings is the changing, farm structure in Eastern and Southern Africa. As you know, Africa has been known for many years as having the missing middle, where you have large-scale farms on one side and a multitude of smallholder farmers on the other side. But this research has revealed that the medium-sized farms are beginning to emerge. And we'll talk about medium farms, we mean 5 to 20 hectares on the lower side and 21 to 100 hectares on the higher side. So we have lower, middle, and the lower, and the upper middle as other classifications. While the traditional smallholder farmers are usually around 2 hectares. Do you see any of, this changing farm structure reflected also in the upstream, the value chain?
I believe the research is correct. In my own opinion, because of obviously capital structure, I see opportunities of small-scale farmers growing up, and what they need is access to the market. So access to the market when it's available is really easier for a small-scale farmer. If finance is a tight situation, you focus on key strategic lines which are on demand. What I've also seen is most of the subsistence or small farmers, they produce what they can produce, but not what is in demand. So I see that as a huge opportunity. If the value chain is well connected, they need to. What tends to happen in SADC is only big farmers have got access to the market, which again kills the smaller farmers. So I see that as a huge opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Takadi. Now I'll turn to Dr. Rugalema. Dr. Rugalema, you have worked with a number of international development organizations. I know you have been at FAO for many years, and now you are with World Vegetable Center. And you have had a lot of experience, particularly in supporting development in Africa. Horticulture seems to be really appealing to especially youth, mainly because as we know, most youth have to wait for their parents, to really pass away before they can take ownership of land. But with horticulture, you can do it even lease the land. But also, horticulture has a high turnover, a short turnover, in the sense that within 3 months you can realize your earnings. Unlike, let's say, coffee or cashew, which may require 3 to 4 years before you can see your first harvest. But one of the big challenges in making Africa competitive, particularly in agriculture, is low productivity. And there are 3 elements, for productivity to happen. One, of course, is the genetic makeup, the seed. And then the nutrition. In this case, we are talking about fertilizer and what it requires, to support the growth of the plant. And thirdly, the management, including control of diseases and pests. So what is your institution doing to improve productivity, especially in horticulture? But I'd also like you also to touch a little bit on the traditional horticultural crops, which I see, I'm not sure if they are diminishing as we see more commercial crops being grown than the one which we used to see, like amaranthus and others. What is your impression of that? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Nyange, the moderator. That's a very, very big question. In the few minutes I have, I will try and digest it. But of course, the young people know that there is quite a bit of opportunity in horticulture. Even if technologies are changing, but horticulture will remain land-based in the sense that they will need land. So governments need to find ways in which to make it easy for young people to access land other than the land owned and operated by their parents. It could be renting, it could be block farms. Look at Tanzania, all these nane fields are used only during nane, so probably we can put them as young farmers' farms during the months that nane does not exist. So I think, when nane doesn't take place. So I think it's a matter of being innovative to find land and supporting other supporting things for young people to go into agriculture. But let me tell you, having worked across Africa and other places, the biggest problem in horticulture is seed and planting materials for vegetables, for fruits and nuts, and for herbs and spices. If you bought a 10-ton truck and went around Tanzania trying to buy amaranth seeds, you won't feel it because there is no seed to buy. So seed and planting materials remains a problem. So if we want to increase yields, if we want to improve production and productivity, and if we need to develop this sector, we surely need, as governments and private sector, to invest in good quality seeds.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Rugalema. Been cautioned about time constraint and asked you questions back to back. So I'd like you to open, the discussion to the floor. But because of limited time, so I'll let the moderator maybe take only one or two questions before we give closing statements. So let's start with this two. There's one person there to the back standing, and I've been cautioned that ladies are represented, so I'll have a favor for one lady also to ask a question.
Kindly introduce yourself briefly and go straight to your point. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it me? My name is Sebastian Kingu. I'm the chairman of a consulting firm, TMS Consultants. I'm with Tanzania. Moderator, thank you very much. This is a good topic, but I will just, in fact, it is a very big, but I will just talk maybe 3 or 4 sentences. The issue of horticulture is a small issue. And we have to understand there is a bigger initiative than SADC. We have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is just to be inaugurated. Africa has been, in fact, structurally, Africa, we have been producing under the colonial structure. I'm sorry to say that. This is the problem. Because we have kept producing raw materials and they are being processed somewhere else. This is not only for agriculture. It is also, if you take the minerals, it's the same thing. So under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the issue here is to reverse the whole system. We want now to produce our own raw materials and make the processing. Otherwise, we are really, our president, in fact, His Excellency John Pombe Magufuli has shown this way. Africa and Tanzanians, in fact, we can do. Unless we dismantle this colonial economic structure, we are going nowhere. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's an issue on the need to add value to agriculture commodities, especially agriculture commodities. Anyone would like to respond to that quickly?
I will suggest we just take the second one and then they wrap it up. Yes.
All right. So I said this one will go preferentially to a lady. Anyone with a question? And if not, then we pick any. Okay, I can see there's a hand. Okay, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, moderator. My name is Ali Abudumze from Taha, Zanzibar. My question will go to Mr. Abdulaziz. and I will speak in Swahili because he's very conversant with Swahili. Sheikh Abdulaziz, nimefurahi sana kwa kueleza kuhusiana na suala zima la biashara na kilimo na miundombinu ya Komoro, na tumefurahi sana kwamba Zanzibar inafanana sana na Komoro katika biashara, na tunapenda sana kufanya biashara na Komoro, na kuna initiatives mbalimbali tayari zimeshachukuliwa baina ya Zanzibar na Komoro kwa upande wa serikali, lakini vile vile kwa upande wa sekta binafsi. Mimi natokea sekta binafsi na najua kwamba Chamber of Commerce imefanya MOU na Chamber ya Komoro kwa nyakati tofauti, lakini kuna mambo ambayo nilitaka kujua kutoka kwako ili tuzidi kuhamasisha watu kuweza kufanya biashara na Komoro. Kwa mfano, suala la bidhaa zinatokana na horticulture zinahitaji ile cold supply chain ambayo italeta ubora na imara kufika kwenye soko. Kulikuwa kunalalamikiwa kwa kipindi kirefu kwamba Komoro kuna tatizo la umeme ambalo limewafanya wafanyabiashara wetu washindwe kupeleka bidhaa Komoro kwa sababu ya kuhofu kwamba zinapofika Komoro tayari wakati mwingine zinakuwa hazina uhifadhi mzuri. Lakini suala jingine ni kwamba kuna urasimu mkubwa sana hasa katika bandari ya Komoro pamoja na airport, na vile vile hakuna zile clear policies ambazo zenye kumvutia mwekezaji akaweza kujua haki yake katika kuinvest Komoro au katika kufanya biashara Komoro. Sasa nilitaka kujua mambo hayo katika utawala huu mpya wa Komoro, umeweka vipi mambo haya sawa ili tuweze kufanya biashara? Asante mwingine.
Okay, asanteni. Nimeonywa kwamba muda umekuwa ni mchache sana. Sasa nitamwomba Mheshimiwa Atuma ajibu hilo. Alafu Bwana Takadi nitaomba ujibu lile swala la kuhusu kuongezea thamani. So I'll ask you to respond to that question on the need for value addition. But I know Dr. Rugalema also you have some experience particularly in addressing post-harvest losses, but most importantly in exporting jobs through export of fresh produce. You know, how do we address that?
Asante sana kwa swali moja nzuri. Kwanza ni kweli Komoro tunayo tatizo ya umeme. Wakati yote inaweza kukatika, lakini sasa hii kama nashukuru ubalozi wa Tanzania Komoro wametuahidi kwamba umeme itatoka Tanga mpaka Anchwa. Maanake kwa muda mfupi tutaweza kuepusha mambo ya umeme, lakini sio leo. Mambo ya pili, urasimu ni tatizo sana na kusafirisha kutoka Dar es Salaam. Kama nilivyosema, vifaranga tunachukua hapa Dar es Salaam, lakini ikifika pale Moroni watu wanaweza kupata hasara ya asili 150 ya vifaranga zinakufa pale pale kwa sababu ya joto na kwa sababu ya urasimu na kwa sababu ya uchelewaji ya mambo mengi tu, na vingine kuna wingi na mpambano ya malipo. Hata hujui unamlipa nani anashughulika na kitu fulani gani, hajulikani. Kwa hivyo mimi nilikuwa naomba kuwa na kamati ya pamoja sisi ili tuhifadhi mali ya mwekezaji na yule ambaye anataka kufanya kazi. Kwa hivyo hii ni fikra ya mwisho nilikuwa naomba kutoka hapa tuwe na kamati pamoja ili mwekezaji ajue anafanya nini, nani atamsaidia. Hata pengine akienda sehemu mali yake itapotea, nani atamsaidia wakati ambaye ni mgeni hawezi kupata misaada kutoka ndani. Ama hii kamati itaweza kutusaidia vizuri kwa sababu Komoro mpaka sasa hii hata huyu president ameomba, amefungua mlango wazi, lakini ile uzoefu watu walikuwa nayo bado ipo ndani. Bidi tusaidiane. Asalamu alaykum.
Okay, thank you. I think it's an important question because what has been happening over our country is we're good in producing like the raw materials because we have not invested in the infrastructure which will add value. So at the end of the day, we tend to lose. We get low cost at the expense of us really getting the real value. Over the countries which I have worked, we can't really import like vegetables because the margins are low. But what we import, like I've said, are the value-added lines because there are some freight charges, there are a lot of components in terms of making sure that that product is competitive. So what is important for country is to really have a true, complete revolution from the seed and make sure that we really sell. If we are going to sell out, we should sell a product which has already been value added. This would definitely help us to have a balance of trade which will equip us.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the last to say something. I will say four things or four elements in which this region needs to invest, and if we do well, we will conquer the world market. One, I have already said it, seed and planting materials. We need top quality there. Number two, packaging materials for enhanced shelf life and the reduction of post-harvest losses. If you see how we transport our matunda, our mboga, is dreadful. We need to improve the standards so that we can convince people with money within the country, in the region, and outside to buy our crops. Number three is to train personnel. We need top experts in these fields that we are talking about, from microbiology to pathology to agronomy to everything along the value chain, and we don't have that capacity. Number four, we need, of course, the storage facilities. Even the Prime Minister referred to this. Storage facilities. We need markets that will enhance shelf life, that are fit for purposes, that will ensure food safety. And lastly, we need a friendly, facilitative, supportive environment in the region, because if you move from with a container from here to sell it to Malawi, and then you are stopped 20 times by the traffic police, that's 3 days lost. And then 2 days at the customs, your product is rotten. So that environment needs to be enhanced, and then we can do trade around the region.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rugalema, and I think that brings us to the end. Thank you very much, my members of the panel, for a very fruitful discussion, focusing in trade and investment with special attention to the Southern Africa Development Community. We have learned a lot from our neighbors and other countries in the region. Asanteni sana kwa kutusikiliza.
Asante sana, asante sana. Just 1 second. After this panel, we're going to go for lunch. I said this before, and then we will come back and have the 2 other sessions. It was really interesting, some of the questions that were touched on. I'm sure John and also Mr. Kirenga will also touch on them, because John, on his session, he will be talking about accelerating some of the issues that were being raised, and then the other bits that Mr. Kirenga is going to touch on, which is pretty much what Dr. finished on, is on issues around enabling environment. So I think those 2 panels will complement what we've heard. Ladies and gentlemen, please, a round of applause to our speakers. And also our moderator, he shared lots of information. So please go Google Professor David Nyange. You will learn a lot about different issues that he did. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you for lunch. I hope all of you did receive your coupon. If you didn't, kindly pass through this door, but the rest you can use the other doors. If you didn't get a coupon, pass through this door. A colleague will give you a coupon. Our lunch is just for 1 hour. So please, let's meet here at exactly 2:41, according to my watch. Asanteni sana, see you shortly. Lunch is served upstairs, and I'm having ushers take you there, Meza 9. All the ushers will take you there. Asanteni sana.